We all like to think we see the world pretty objectively, right? That we're seeing it as it really is. But here's the thing, we're not, at all. Turns out every single one of us views reality through a set of invisible psychological lenses. These are mental shortcuts that are constantly interpreting, filtering, and often distorting everything we see. So today, let's make those invisible lenses visible.
Let's just dive right in with a question that gets to the absolute heart of this. Have you ever, say, cut someone off in traffic and thought, whoops, sorry, I'm just in a huge hurry? But when someone else does the exact same thing to you, your immediate reaction is, what an absolute selfish jerk, right? That little double standard right there, that reveals one of the most powerful and common lenses we use every single day.
So to really get why we have that double standard, we need to look at our brain's automatic explanation machine. It's this process that's always running in the background, constantly trying to figure out the why behind what people do. And that brings us to our first big idea, attribution theory. So what is attribution theory? Well, think of it like the basic operating system our brain uses to make sense of the world. Anytime we see something happen, somebody laughs, somebody yells at their computer, someone helps a stranger, we instantly automatically create a story to explain why they did that. We basically become instant detectives assigning a cause to that behavior. And those explanations we come up with, they usually fall into one of two buckets. First, you've got dispositional attribution. This is when we blame someone's internal character, who they are as a person. So we see that angry driver and think, wow, that guy clearly has an anger problem. But the second bucket is situational attribution. That's where we blame outside factors. We think, man, that person must be having the worst day. And the choice our brain makes between those two, that's where things get really fascinating.
Yeah, because that choice, it often leads us straight into what you could call the blame game. This is where our handy mental shortcuts turn into straight-up judgment errors, or what psychologists call cognitive biases. They're these super predictable patterns in how we mess up when we're judging others and ourselves.
The first, and honestly the most common error, is the fundamental attribution error. It's like our default setting. We're just wired to jump to dispositional explanations when we're looking at other people. So if you see someone trip and fall, your first thought probably isn't, the floor must be slippery. It's more like, whoa, they're clumsy. We leap to a conclusion about their character and completely ignore the context of the situation. And this brings us right back to that traffic jam. The actor-observer bias explains that double standard perfectly. See, when we are the actor in a situation, when I'm the one who trips, I am very, very aware of all the situational factors. I'll immediately say, this sidewalk is so uneven. But when I'm just an observer watching you trip, I default right back to that fundamental error and think, yikes, you're not very coordinated, are you?
This image just nails the whole idea, doesn't it? In our own lives, we are living the full, messy, chaotic reality. The screaming kids, the deadlines, the stress, all of it. But when we look at other people, especially online, what do we see? We see the curated, perfect-looking moment. We're seeing their highlight reel while we're stuck living with our own chaotic behind-the-scenes footage.
Okay, so we've spent some time looking at how we judge other people. But now, let's flip that lens around. Let's turn it inward. What about how we judge ourselves and our own place in the world? I mean, how much control do you really think you have over your own life? This question right here, it gets at a really core concept called locus of control. And fundamentally, it's all about where you believe the power in your life really is. Is it internal, something inside of you, or is it external, in the hands of fate, luck, or just other people? So people with an internal locus of control genuinely believe that they are in the driver's seat of their own lives. When they hit a setback, they tend to see it as a temporary problem that they have the power to solve. But on the flip side, folks with an external locus of control often feel like life is something that just happens to them. For them, a negative event can feel all-consuming and permanent, mostly because they don't feel like they have the agency to change it.
All right, our next inward-facing lens is one of the most powerful ones we have, and honestly, in our modern world, it might just be one of the most dangerous. I'm talking about the lens of social comparison. It's that constant, often totally unconscious habit of measuring ourselves against everybody around us. And this whole comparison game, it really goes in two different directions. When we do what's called upward social comparison, we're looking at people we think are better off than we are. Now, sometimes this can be motivating, but let's be real, a lot of the time it just chips away at our self-esteem.
The other direction is downward social comparison. This is when we look at people we feel are worse off. And doing that can give us a quick, temporary ego boost, making us feel a little better about where we are. And this constant upward comparison can lead to this really powerful feeling called relative deprivation. And the key thing to get here is that this has nothing to do with being objectively poor or lacking things. It's a purely psychological state. You could have absolutely everything you need to live a good life, but if your reference group, your neighbors, your coworkers, the influencers you follow online, seems to have more, it can leave you feeling deeply, deeply dissatisfied and even resentful. And this brings us right back to this image again, because it just perfectly captures the very root of relative deprivation. We feel deprived not because our lives are actually bad, but because we're comparing our own messy reality to someone else's curated, perceived perfection. We're basically comparing our chapter 3 to their chapter 20, and that's a game you can't win. So now we've arrived at our final and maybe our most mind-bending lens. We've seen how our perceptions interpret reality. But what if I told you they could actually create it? This is what we're calling the reality warping lens, where our beliefs don't just see the world, they actively go out and shape it. Let's start with a really simple example of this, the mere exposure effect. Just look at this graph. It shows that the more we're exposed to something, a person, a song, an idea, anything, the more we actually tend to like it. Our brains are just wired to prefer things that are familiar. It's a super subtle way our environment shapes what we believe and what we like, without us even realizing it's happening. But it gets so much deeper than that. Our beliefs do way more than just shape what kind of music we like. A really core belief can be like the very first domino in a long chain reaction, setting off a series of events that can literally change our reality. This is a wild phenomenon called the self-fulfilling prophecy. There's this classic study, the Pygmalion effect, where teachers were told at random that certain students were intellectual bloomers who were about to take off. Because the teachers believed this, they unconsciously gave those kids more attention, more encouragement, and guess what happened? By the end of the year, those exact students showed significantly higher gains in their IQ scores. The initial prophecy, it came true. And this diagram shows you exactly how that cycle works. It all starts with our belief about a situation. That belief then influences our actions. Our actions then have an impact on what other people believe about us. Their beliefs, in turn, cause their actions towards us, which, you guessed it, ends up reinforcing our original belief. It is a powerful, powerful feedback loop that can either work for us or it can work against us. And that really gets to the central idea of all this. The source material we're looking at highlights this as one of the most critical concepts to grasp if you want to understand people. We have to acknowledge the powerful influence that our thoughts and beliefs can have on our actions and outcomes. So look, if there is only one thing you take away from all of this today, let it be this. It's so important. The lenses you use to see the world, they are not just passive filters. They are active tools. They are the architects that are constructing the very life you experience. Put simply, your perception shapes your reality. By understanding these lenses, how we judge others, how we see our own power, how our beliefs literally create our future, you can start to spot them in your own life. And once you can see them, that's when you get the power to choose. You can start to challenge your knee-jerk judgments, to question your assumptions, and to consciously select the lens you want to view your world through. So the final question, the one that really matters is, what reality will you choose to create?